Seb sat at his large consulting desk, staring at the framed picture of his family. He had made up his mind. "I will have to call it off with Blessing," he said firmly, his voice steady. "It's not fair to her either. She's kind and decent, and she would do anything for me." Across from him, Mrs. Akobundu sighed, leaning back in her chair. "I don't think that would be necessary," she replied gently, folding her hands in her lap. Seb shook his head. "No, I really have to put a stop to it," he said, his eyes fixed on the photograph, his guilt palpable. Mrs. Akobundu broke the silence. "Adultery is a state of mind," she said with a knowing smile. "Even our pastor says that. Just thinking of someone who isn't your spouse can be a sin. The world is full of temptations, magazines, television, even the gadgets in our hands. We're all guilty in some way." Seb rubbed his temple, the weight of her words settling over him. He wasn't like other men. He had always thought of himself as different, guided by a stronger moral compass. "I don't understand you, Doctor," Mrs. Akobundu said, her tone lighter now. "Your situation is the dream of most men." Seb frowned. "What do you mean?" "Blessing is a nice girl. Why not keep her? Why can't you have a family here and another in London?" Seb's voice was tight. "How would you feel if you were Elsa, my wife?" Mrs. Akobundu shrugged, her tone pragmatic. "This is Nigeria, September. Not everything is black and white as you want to see it. Polygamy is still accepted here." She lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Let me tell you something." She glanced around the room before continuing. "Chief Akobundu, my husband, will soon take a new wife, a young girl who just finished university. She will be his second wife. It might even help me." Seb stared at her in disbelief. "And you don't mind?" he asked, as though hearing something unimaginable. "Let her come," she said with a bitter chuckle, clasping her hands. "We'll all share the wealth I've been enjoying alone. When it's gone, we'll all starve together. Better that than him spending it on her outside." Seb glanced through the campaign files in front of him, but his mind wandered. He watched as Mrs. Akobundu turned to stare out of the window, her expression distant. She was a product of this society, one that accepted moral compromises as part of life. He admired her pragmatism even as it frustrated him. She seemed woven into the fabric of a world he struggled to understand. Seb compared himself to a delicate car designed for smooth English roads, now struggling on the rugged, pothole-riddled terrain of his homeland. In no time, the car would break down and be wrecked. He saw clearly for the first time that it was what had happened to him. The realization struck him. He was out of place, and the life he had built was breaking down.